Okay, Mike, you can start.
Okay. Hi. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining Courageous Discussions. This is a show that we're just talking about current affairs, what's going on in the world right now. And we feel this is part of the healing process to be able to have dialogue. So we appreciate you joining. If you're in your car and you're riding along and you're on a podcast and you can hear us, we say thank you for that. And maybe you're in your kitchen right now and you see us on Facebook. We want to say thank you for joining. Perhaps maybe you're somewhere working from home and you happen to see us and you just want to listen to us. We appreciate that. So we appreciate your time. If you just give us a chance to be able to maybe hear the things that we're talking about, some of the topics that we feel that maybe we can have those courageous conversations, so to speak, to people that want to hear, that want to listen to some of the things that's going on in the world. There's a lot of things that's going on in the world right now, a lot of racial injustices, or some people may say controversies. That's a topic. And we can see in the last few weeks, we talked about, we were going to come on a couple weeks ago and talk about George Floyd, but as we see now, we can talk about Rayshard Brooks, which just happened on Saturday. I think a lot of us want to talk about these things, talk about police brutality. That's a topic that some people want to talk about. It's a very difficult conversation for some, but I believe it's a conversation that is necessary. So that's what this show is really about, is having these courageous conversations, these courageous discussions, have it unscripted so we can talk about it. Perhaps these are the conversations you're having with your kids. Perhaps this is the conversation you're having with your auntie, your uncle on the phone when they call at 9 o'clock in the morning. People want to hear what your take is and what's going on. We see all the things that's going on in the world right now. Obviously, we know what the solution is. Jesus is the solution. But right now, to start the healing process, I think we have to have these courageous conversations, these courageous dialogues, to be able to talk about some of the things that's going on in the world. And we'll be talking about marriage in the ministry. We'll talk about things that's going on in the church, how some may feel when they go to a predominantly one-sided church where it's pretty much all a dominant race there, how difficult it may be for Christians to be in there. And will they be accepted? I think those are the kind of conversations that we kind of have to have sometimes. Because one thing I know for sure is that some people are thinking a certain way, a different way. And I think by having these discussions, we can do some of the healing and we can talk about some of the things. So I'm happy that you guys are here. I'm happy that you guys are watching. I hope you continue to watch. I have two other great co-hosts with me that are fantastic. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about them and I'll let them speak. Mr. Tim White, who is not only a pastor, but he is an author of like 91 books. So he's going to tell you a little bit about the books he wrote and how he wrote them. But Tim has a love for God. Tim and I, we work in the prison ministry together, and he's there on Bible studies. We do group settings with kids. We're in the ministry where I work with the kids who are in prison. I work for Youth for Christ, and I deal with kids who are incarcerated. 95% don't have mothers, don't have fathers, and they found themselves incarcerated. And I think it's up to us and most of us to come in and be able to spread the gospel to them. So a lot of times, a lot of us may look at the organizations that do that kind of work and say that they got it all together. But in reality, we don't. We need volunteers. We need volunteers that can come in and step in, and like Tim does, he comes in each week. Some people help us with the finances, with dealing with kids who are incarcerated. And we certainly appreciate whatever your desire may be. But Tim, he volunteers, and he has a special gift with kids. When he comes, they just congregate around him. He has this ability to win them over. He has that type of personality, and it's fantastic. And when you get a chance to meet him, which will be in a few minutes, you're going to truly enjoy him. Same thing with Richard White. Now, I'm going to be upfront with you. There's no relations, but we're all brothers in Christ. So Tim White and Richard White are the co-hosts, and they're here, and they're going to help discuss. Richard's a fantastic guy. In fact, he's in the ministry as well. And I tell you what, loves kids. He organizes the Restoration Chapel every Wednesday at Cuyahoga Hills, where we're having chapel service. We haven't been there for a minute because of COVID-19, but hopefully the doors will be opening soon. So no further ado, let me just turn it over to Tim White. Let him tell us a little bit about what he does and why he does it. Tim?
Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. The kind words and the consideration. It's all about, as you said, it's a commitment. We are committed to doing what we are doing for everyone who's out here listening, watching, observing, and hopefully participating, because that's what we really want from people, their participation. As Mike has mentioned, been in the ministry now. I've been in the ministry for 45 plus years, and I have had an opportunity to meet some remarkable people, and of late, a lot of young people who are hurting, as Mike has mentioned, hurting. Everyone is hurting in some capacity. And part of our responsibility to you as a listening audience and as a viewing audience is to help you convert that healing to helping, and hurting to healing to helping other people. So the dynamics will change throughout the week, throughout the course of what we're doing, because the show is about you. It's about you as a listening audience and a viewing audience. We want to make sure that we're tailoring things to help you as individuals become better at what you're doing and how you can be a better individual. At the heart of what we're doing is always going to be Jesus Christ. But we don't want to beat somebody in the head with our faith. We want you to be able to see the faith and see how active it is and how it can change your life. That's what we're here for. Yes, I've written a number of books, and we'll talk about some of those books in the future. I'm also on the radio. We took a hiatus because of the COVID-19 thing. I'm on WERE 1490, and the show is called Healing the Hurt. There's a few of the things that we do. And right now, we're going to get familiar with one another in the next few weeks and few months. So until then, I'm going to hand off the baton to Mr. Richard White over here and let him tell you a little bit about himself.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm glad you're tuning in right now because we're in a tumultuous time.
Yes.
And we need to be able to speak courageously to the topics and issues that are going on. Our world is ever evolving, ever changing, but one thing that stands true, and that's the truth of God's word. And like you mentioned, we're all in the ministry in some capacity, but that's not all who we are. We are just like you. We are people out here in this world, and we're trying to raise families and work jobs and be good, productive citizens and role models to the youth out here. That's why we do what we do. And, myself being, the youngest of 6, 5 boys and 1 girl, and I grew up in the Glenville area, inner city Cleveland, and a single parent household. My mom did a tremendous job with us. But I realized in order for me to achieve anything, it was going to take courage. And part of being courageous is being able to speak truthfully and being able to have courageous discussions about topics. Now, notice we didn't say arguments or debates. We want to have discussions. And a discussion allows for everybody's input. And that's why you as a listening audience are important. We need to hear from you. We want to know how you're feeling. We want to know how we can help you to live a courageous, victorious life. Okay. So that's me. I'm excited about this show. I'm excited about my 2 co-hosts. Like Mike said, I'm Richard White. That's Tim White. We're not related. Although, when he starts raking in money from all them books he's written, I want to be, I want to be in the wheel, Tim. So, don't forget me, So, but we're going to laugh. We're going to have a good time. But
absolutely.
We're going to step into some very, very serious topics that affect everyday lives, from economics to relationships to what's going on in the world, covering tough topics like, sex trafficking, injustice in the world, systemic racism. You're going to hear those terms that are really now starting to come to the forefront of what's been going on. And so we're going to be discussing those, and we look forward to you going on this journey of discovery with us.
I appreciate that, Richard. And we also thank the listeners again for allowing us to be in your car, allowing us to be in your living room, and hopefully enjoying the topics that we're talking about. I mean, let's just dive right into it. I mean, this past weekend, Rashard Brooks sleeping at a drive-through. So how does a man die when he was driving intoxicated, but he ends up dead? How does that happen? So my question is police brutality a reality? I mean, there are some good cops, don't get me wrong. But how do we fix the system that is broken? How do we fix that? You know, I'm going to ask you that, Richard. What do you, and then Tim, and Tim, you can go after him. But how do you fix this system where a person that is driving, yes, was he wrong driving while he was intoxicated? Yes. But I mean, the man even asked, "Can I just give you my keys and walk home? Can I do that?" So my thing is, how does it turn into this every single time? I mean, this guy, his daughter's birthday was the next day. Maybe he didn't feel like he wanted to go to jail that day. I mean, there's a lot of certain variables. The problem I have is we can't ask him. We can't, and I just feel that, let me tell you something. I was in customer service for 30 years. I dealt with irate customers my whole life. My job always, as a manager, was to be able to de-escalate issues. To de-escalate. So, I mean, I think about it. If a person wanted a product and he wasn't happy with it, and I went to his door and I said, well, if you don't like it, hey, get another provider. Would that be good customer service? Would that be somebody that's going to say, hey, I still want your product? No, they're going to get upset about it. It's going to escalate it. And so, you can't, I mean, I'm not comparing that to what happened, but the point I'm making is that should not the police be de-escalating these issues instead of escalating them? I mean, go ahead, just tackle that, Richard.
Yeah, no, your analogy about customer service is fitting. I mean, because what do we see on the side of police cars? What do they serve? Protect, right? Serve the community, okay? And that's what you hope the outcome would be. Now, I watched 45 minutes of that exchange, and it started out good. I mean, the cops did a good job of just dialoguing with him, and to where it wouldn't escalate, right? And from my understanding, the officer that fired the 2 shots in his back was trained in de-escalation and racial sensitivity. He was trained in that. So, how did it go very wrong? And, and like you said, this is just the latest of many in the past where confrontations with those who are there to serve and protect go wrong. Okay. And so I think when you start to look at what the problem is that police officers now these days don't really engage with the community. The only time that they engage with the community is they're called to either arrest or supposed to de-escalate a contentious situation. So when you come to only know a community through those types of interactions, you're bound to always end up with hair trigger responses that result in what happened in the Wednesday's parking lot, okay? Or what happened with George Floyd, because you to me, you develop a contempt for the people that you're there to serve. Okay, so I think there's been talk about now defunding the police, which basically the argument is reappropriating funds within the community to help deal with some of the systemic issues that's creating some of these encounters with the police, right? And I think one of the ways those funds could be used is to find ways for the police to engage the community. I think, and you guys help me out, I think back in the day, they had the police athletic league, if I'm correct, where they sponsored, community basketball leagues, et cetera, correct?
Yeah.
Absolutely. POW.
Yeah, POW, yeah.
POW, Police Athletic League.
Yeah, and so until they get to know, the police get to know the people that they're there to serve as their neighbors and get to know them intimately, you're going to unfortunately, you're going to have these instances. Because think about this, and then I'll let you jump in, Tim. You said something very poignant, Mike, in that the guy said, "Here, can I give you my keys and just walk to the hotel?" Okay, to me, this is my estimate, if you're engaging in that community and you know people, and you've been, even if you've been in a community where you're engaging people, to me, that sounds like a sensible request, especially in light of what's going on with police interactions, to say, look, okay, yeah, I'm gonna let you walk. I'm gonna serve you with a warrant. Maybe that's not how they do it. I don't know, but to me, I'm thinking, hey, look, we're gonna take your keys. We're gonna maybe impound your car. Yeah, you're gonna have to walk back to your hotel, et cetera. We're gonna give you a citation.
Hey, Richard, let me just say this real quick, though, what you talked about, and then I'll let you comment, Tim, because I just want to before we move on or have Tim comment, you were right. When we were a kid, I remember when I was a young man, I would play football in the street football. But I remember the policeman, when I was about 7 or 8, he would pull over to the side. He even took his gun belt off and played official quarterback and was throwing the ball. You see what I'm saying? So back then, but it changed. What I noticed the change was like around high school. I remember the police began wearing the dark sunglasses. The police began not looking you in the eye. Their whole demeanor changed. And Tim, did I have the wrong impression? Help me out there.
No, you didn't have the wrong impression. Actually, as you were speaking, it took me back to my childhood as well. When I grew up, there was the beat cops. They were called the beat cops. You always seen the police walk up and down the street. And the thing about it, they were always in twos. They were always a pair of cops. And then they got to the one unit vehicles, one cop, and you had to call an army of cops to come in to supposedly diffuse the situation. But going back to what you said, it's important that we recognize the fact that, yeah, the police were part of the community. And Ricky, you said it really well. You simply say to protect and to serve. That's part of their responsibilities. They're there to serve the community. But see, they've stopped serving the community, and they don't communicate anymore. It's not communicate, but dominate. You talked about wearing the dark glasses. Now they come in with that ego that I'm the man, and you're going to have to listen to me. And the system is broken, and we have to understand it's broken. And we're going to be talking about it over the course of the next weeks or so. What are some of the ways to get this fixed? It starts with a mentality. We have to help people change the mentality, because if we don't, it's going to remain broken. And as you were saying, I remember the cops stopping and spend 10, 15 minutes with you talking about, hey, they even knew some of us by name. They knew your parents by name. And we talked about this a year ago at a summit that we did with the Cleveland Police. And I told them then, the problem that we have is you guys don't communicate with us. You don't talk. Only time we see you is if it's a break-in or something detrimental. I want to see you apart from that. I want to get familiar with you as a human being so you can get familiar with me as a human being. If you know me as a human being, you're less likely to pull your gun out on me and try to shoot me.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I don't want to make it sound like we're beating the police up, because one thing is they do a fantastic, for the most part, they're policing the neighborhoods, and we appreciate their service. So, I mean, here's the thing. How do you start the weeding out process?
Mm.
I mean, do you give them a bias evaluation where you begin to test their mental capacity? Are they biased one way? Do you begin to do a drug test on each cop, making sure they're not on steroids? So, because steroids kind of mess your mentality up too, where, you know, if you don't know if you ever met anybody that's on steroids, they really have this issue with their ego, or their demeanor. Yeah, they're kind of aggressive. So do we start testing the police for steroids? Do we give them bias evaluations to see if there's some hidden racism within these cops? I mean, you know, there is evidently there's a problem.
When you apply for your job, when we apply for a job, the first thing they do is they want you to fill out an application, right?
Yeah.
They want to see what your mental capacity is as well. Why do we change that when it concerns the police? And yet, I agree with you. We're not trying to beat up the police, but we have to really raise awareness. There are some bad apples in there that needs to be rooted out and weeded out. And we have to be fair in what we're doing. And sometimes being fair and honest is going to hurt some people's feelings. And we're not here to make you feel good. We need to find out what you're doing wrong so we can correct that, help you to correct that situation.
That's right.
If I'm reading what you're saying correctly, what we need to do is we have to look at it and simply say, hey, the system is broken. Okay, how broken is it? And if we recognize how broken it is, what's broken?
Right.
Then we can zero in on the things that need to be fixed. And whether we want to admit it or not, it comes from the head down.
Yeah, you know, and I think about this, Tim, when I saw that footage with George Floyd, I mean, it broke my heart. I don't think anybody ever watched that video with a dry eye. But I think what made that so much different was that, because, you know, you think about it, the whole world is protesting about Black Lives Matter. And it really touched everybody. And that's what I really appreciate about the whole thing, that everybody's speaking up. But I think what was different about that video, and you guys let me know what you think. I think the video was different because of the fact you saw the murderer and you saw the victim, both on the same screen. They were right there. And I can't ever think, when I look at these videos on YouTube and Facebook, which I try not to watch a whole lot of them because it's so painful, but they're all over there. I don't think there's ever been one where we saw on the same screen the murderer and the victim. And I think the whole world, that's the question I guess I'm asking. What made this different? And I direct it to you, Tim, you know, because you were there with the Huff riots, you were there with you know, Rodney King. I was there, so was Richard. But this was different. This time you had the whole world came out and supported it and said, hey, it must be a change. The system is broken. So, Tim, here's the question. What makes it different this time? Why now? Richard and Tim?
Yeah.
Well, I think Tim, I can't find him. So, Richard, can you ask that for me?
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
I think he might have somehow got off.
Okay. Yeah, I think what makes it different is the environment. I think I attribute it to two things: the time, our political climate that we're in, okay, and the environment. And what do I mean by the environment? I'll start with that first. Okay, we're still in the midst of a pandemic. And because of this COVID-19, we were asked to self-isolate, to shelter for a certain period of time. So all of the country shut down. And we were told, go in the house, okay? And then what we're learning out of this COVID-19, because it's so disproportionately affected at the African-American community, it exposed the systemic racism in our society that lent itself to our developing some pre-existing conditions like hypertension, et cetera. because in environments, one, we're in our cities, we're closer together. We don't have good access to healthcare and the best foods, etc. Okay. So that lent itself to creating a stress as it was. And now you look at our political times and how divided we are along political lines. Okay. And I'm just going to be flat out, just some of the rhetoric we hear from the White House is not uniting us, it's dividing us.
Yeah.
So, you put that on there. And then now, George Floyd. And to your point, Mike, we saw a man really in slow motion.
Yeah.
Slowly die, 8 minutes, 46 seconds, where someone who we pay, our taxpayers pay, who is supposed to serve and protect, snuffed this guy's life out. And then you hear him beg for his life.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, call for his dead mother.
Yeah.
Right? You put all of these together and now we're at a boiling point.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that George Floyd did for me, unlike any other, because it happened in broad daylight with 3 other officers watching, one of them keeping the other people at bay. So they were saying, hey man, help this guy, he's dying. He's sitting there, kneeling there with his knee in his neck, mocking him. Well, get up then. And looking into the camera of the people that were filming him. To me, that let us know that can happen to any one of us.
Yeah, Richard, I was thinking too, we were talking about the difference and why now too. I agree with 100% what you're saying with the environment, but also I have to say what made this change too was social media, right? Social media got involved in this video. And in fact, what I can't understand is like why mainstream media like Channel 5, Channel 8, Channel 3 have refused to show the whole video. If you guys, I know you guys watched the whole video is even more disturbing because that you see the plead from people. They're begging this cop to say, stop, you're killing him, get off of him. And then the policeman, tries to spray him with mace, to prevent the one woman from coming forward. So, that's the part that you're right. When you say that, here you are looking at police officers who are supposed to honor, to protect and serve us. And then when you see that, that's why, be honest, we're nervous when we get stopped.
Nervous.
We have to roll the windows down, put our hands on the steering wheel, have our driver's license there, turn all our windows down. We're doing everything possible to stay alive.
Yeah.
And that's the scary part, because now, what do you do now, Richard?
Yeah.
Like you said, it happened in broad daylight, where this guy who, and here's the thing that got me, and you see it on a lot of these videos, the police officers saying, hey, quit resisting. Quit resisting.
Yeah.
As they're holding you by the neck. And so when someone holds you by the neck, what are you going to do? Your instinct is to try to take it off.
You want to breathe.
You're trying to breathe.
Yeah, breathe.
Yeah, Tim, what's your thoughts? And the question was, why now? You went through I know you went off for a little bit, but why?
Yeah, I got bumped, but that's okay. Things are going to happen when we're live. So that's what happened. Bumped me. Well, I didn't bump one of you guys, but it bumped me. But I was listening at you guys, and one of the things you asked a question about channels 3, 5, and 8. A lot of them aren't going to show too much because they are looking at their revenue. They have to be concerned with their viewership and the sponsors. The people are doing those things. So, one of the things I dislike about seeing some of the news media do it, they'll say breaking news. And if it's that important, why are you saying we'll show you at 11?
Yeah.
If it's breaking news and so important, why it's 6 o'clock and you're going to wait till 11 o'clock to reveal to me this breaking news? If it's that important, tell me now.
That's right.
So I can do what I need to do to prepare for whatever's coming. But we don't see a lot of that. And going back to the whole topic of this show is being courageous. You have to be courageous and to stand up and say, you know what, we're going to show this because people need to see it. You're not going to change things that you don't know about. It's unfortunate that George Floyd died. He was murdered on camera. But because of that, look how many people around the world have now gotten involved because they simply say, you know what? I hear that could have been my brother.
That's right.
My husband, my father. So, some things happen because we need a wake-up call.
Yeah.
This is a wake-up call to the country and the nation. But it comes right back down to what are we going to do? Or why are we doing something now opposed to last week or last month? It became more real to us. Every generation has something that we need to have a baton handed to us.
Yeah.
This was our baton being handed to us to simply say, now, what are you going to do? You sing this up close.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing that affected me the most, seeing the murderer and the person who's being murdered, that was powerful in itself.
Yeah.
But on top of that is when this man called out to his dead mother, mama, that has to resonate with you. As a human being, he's calling to his mother, whom we didn't know she was dead at the time.
Right.
But when you found out that she was dead and he was calling out to her, that meant something. He was saying, mama, help me.
Yeah.
In the midst of that. So that's part of the reason. I think a lot of the moms out there realize, you know what, that could be my son.
That's right.
All these people involved, white women, young teens, that have gotten more involved because they saw this and said, wow, you know what? That hurts.
Yeah.
That hurts my heart to see something like that.
Let me ask you, Richard, here, because that kind of brings up the next thing that Martin Luther King, he said something back in the day, and I think it was 1965, I'm not really sure the date, but he says, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the words of our friends. So when I think about the silence of our friends, right? Well, we won't remember the words of our enemies, but what we will remember is the silence of our friends. So here, the question is, how do we adjust to those who refuse to speak out? You know what I'm saying? Or to marginalize it. When you talk about what happened, they may go to, well, look at all the writing, look at all the buildings. And they kind of margin, and I think people do it without even thinking. I mean, I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
Okay, that's nice of you.
Right. Just giving them the benefit of the doubt. So some people may say, well, hey, yeah, but why not say it the other way? Yeah, we see all the writing, but man, we've got to stop the social justice. So my question is, because people will say, well, I'm not going to get involved. I'm not going to speak out. To me, that's offensive as well, because I think that you should speak out. I think that your silence is saying something when you're saying nothing. When you're saying nothing, you are saying something. Yeah. So, my question is, how do we deal with that when we see our friends that may not want to vocalize, may not want to speak out? How do you deal with something like that? And I'll turn that over to you, Tim, real quick, because then you dealt with this for longer than me. But how do you deal with that?
There's a fear of involvement. That fear of involvement. What is it going to cost me to say something, to participate? And what we have to do is help them break down that barrier, because that's what it is. It's a barrier between them and the situation. And we also call it our comfort zone. People don't want to get out of that comfort zone because they're afraid of what would happen should they do that. But then at the same time, there's some people who want to be invited out, and they can be invited out by what we give them. If we can give them the proper ammunition to do a better job, many people will. And sometimes it's just that invitation. They need an invitation to do better. And that comes through us educating them, which is this program is all about. There are going to be people who get involved by listening to what we're saying and what we have to say. It's a wake-up call to them that, you know what, maybe I should do more than I have been doing, and help this situation. People will change if they see the need to change. There's some people who just don't see the need to change, again, because they're comfortable.
Yeah, you know what, Tim, what you say is true because, you know, my dad used to always tell me this. When they don't see the need to change until it affects them.
Absolutely.
Until it affects them. Richard, what's your thoughts on that, Richard?
Yeah, well, this, as we can see with the protest, expanding close to, well, my last count was like 18 countries.
Mm-hmm.
The protests in themselves are telling us it's affecting everybody.
Yes.
Okay. What's different about this moment in the protests is I've never seen so many white people out.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, in cities, Black Lives Matter marches in cities that are predominantly white. Okay. Because in what we saw in George Floyd, and you know, you can mention Breonna Taylor, and it goes on and on, because you know, these all kind of happened within a short span, all dealing with an injustice. Nobody in their right mind wants to live in an unjust society. Okay. Everybody on some level wants justice.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you blatantly see the injustice, particularly in George Floyd, you know, that sparks something in all of us to make us want to stand out and cry, you know, justice for all, but then to work towards that.
Yeah.
You know, and so this is what you know, the different factors that make this different. And so now what we've got to do now is how do we seize on this moment to bring about real change within our justice system, within our social system. You know, I've said several times, I've referenced systemic racism, and that's a talk for another time. But we got to deconstruct how our society is put together and now reconstruct what a just society can look like, where it benefits all.
Yeah, Rich, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I mean, you think about that. I think the beginning of it is to speak out. I mean, you think about just people speaking out about abortions, right? Which we all agree that that's wrong. But it's also wrong to kill a black man and think they can get away with it, think that that's okay. And I think when you marginalize it, it's when it becomes hurtful. I mean, you think about what happened in California this past last couple of weeks with Sterling Higgins, with Robert Fuller and Malcolm Harsh, both found hanging from a tree. See, that's why I said I think there's a time you have to admit there's a problem before you can fix it.
Absolutely.
Right.
And to your point, because I and you may know better than me, I don't know if they figured out fully if those were
Still investigating.
Yeah, still investigating. So I'm curious to see what that's going to bear out. But those incidents do conjure up instances of the past where, as we know, as Black people in this country, where lynching was common, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Where it wasn't uncommon for us to be hanging from a tree. So you can't help but to think if there was some malice involved in that. But, you know, back to your point, Mike, of voice is why some don't speak out. I think it could be a number of reasons. Some of it could be, okay, I don't know how to speak out in this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm deluged with so many emotions. I don't know how to express it. And I get that. I think it's incumbent upon us in a show like this, which is why we're doing it, to be able to help people to be able to dialogue with people that don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Right. Don't know how to use their voice. Some of it is lending your voice, whether it be amongst a group where you're marching and protesting. Some of it is we're finding in corporate America is how to use your platform, how to use your influence to change these narratives, right? You know, politicians got to be able to use their influence to change and legislate. You know, one of the big things that voices are being used among our politicians is, okay, we need to ban the chokehold, right?
Yeah.
We need to ban. You got a man, he's saying he can't breathe. Okay, how much more do you need to keep choking?
Yeah.
Okay. If you've got him constrained, right? Why are you still choking him?
Yeah.
Which speaks to the heart of the matter. And that's a whole nother issue. The heart of just some of what we have out there, supposedly serving, protecting, needs to change.
See, we have a lot of people out here. Everybody who's seen these unarmed Black people being killed, they're angry. They're
Mhm.
angry, but most people who are angry don't know how to direct that anger.
Yeah.
They just want it out.
Yep.
And what we want to do is help them get it out. We don't want you to ignore it, but we want you to have that anger turn into something positive that you can do with it. It goes back to John Walsh, whose son was murdered, and he ended up doing America's Most Wanted.
Yeah.
He took that anger and did something positive with it. Yvonne Pointer, when her daughter was murdered, she turned around and took that anger and did something positive with it. And you don't forget the hurt, you don't forget the pain, but you make that pain become productive in your life. You can turn it into something positive. What we tend to do oftentimes, we want to say, I want to forget the pain. It's not going to go away. My dad was murdered in 2010. I can never forget that. But I can turn that into something positive in my life to help people, because I don't know what the mindset of the people who did kill him was. But I know we can help change the mindset of people by doing what we're doing now. We're taking this platform and said, I want to help you, help people understand. We're not telling you not to hurt. Absolutely, you're hurting. But we want you to do something beyond the hurt. I don't want you to become violent with the hurt that you have in your life. We don't want you to simply say, because you lost your husband, your brother, your sister, you have to become negative. How do we take that energy and make it useful?
That's right. And Tim, and speak on this for a little bit too. Do you think for us, we have to vote? We have to not only vote for the presidency, but for our senators. Do you think that, you have to I think that is part of using your energy of not minimizing, saying, well, my vote doesn't count. Your vote does count. If you watch what Martin Luther King did in Selma, he gave his life.
Part of that is because we've been indoctrinated to believe that our votes don't matter. There's a brainwashing. Now, you talk about want to get controversial. There's a brainwashing of America that many people within the system is blinded to that system. They think that this is the only way to get things done. And we have for 400 years been told, you're nothing, you won't amount to anything, don't even bother with trying. And we have adapted our thinking to believe much of that we have been taught. I look at Black history, we talk about it. I have people tell me, why should we have Black history? I said, we only need Black history because you don't give us the right history.
That's right.
So if you balance the history, we don't need Black history. If we do what is right, and I like what you said too a moment ago, Rick, is about justice. It's either justice or just us.
Yep.
Many times it's just us. And we have to look at that for what it is. So again, it goes back to, what's the mindset? What do we need to do to get that corrupt mind, that crab in the barrel mentality, the big I, little you mentality? We have a work cut out for us with this program to help people understand that we're better than that. Whatever that might be. Some people, we classify that. That's a personal issue, but we are better than situations and circumstances that confront us.
Yeah. I wanted to change gears for just, and that's so true, Tim, but let's talk about, Colin Kaepernick. Now, he protested, and that's going to be in a couple of weeks. I think Richard, we're going to be talking about the protest, how to protest, but did people really understand what Colin Kaepernick was doing when he was on his bended knee protesting? It was about police brutality. Speak on that, Richard, for a little bit.
Yeah, well, what happened with Kaepernick is the narrative was hijacked. Because, Colin Kaepernick, made it clear that he was not standing for the national anthem to
Yeah.
bring awareness to police brutality, issues that we're talking about now, right?
Yeah.
And when did Kaepernick start doing that? And look at it, look what we're doing today. Still talking about it, trying to bring awareness to it. And by bringing awareness to something, you then start to talk about what can the solutions look like. So we're not here talking about this, right? So his narrative was hijacked because if you remember, you know, he got a letter from a service member who said, listen, you know, it's disrespectful for you to do that to service members who fought for the country, for freedom, for you not to stand during the anthem. But if you kneel, that is a sign of respect. Yeah. It's a respect. So that was agreed upon. That was already out there. But along comes the hijackers, and you know, it was spun to where, okay, if you don't stand for the national anthem, you're disrespecting the flag.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you, do you think President Trump had a lot to do with that? As far as, because you spoke about he was dividing the nation. He's been doing that. And, I mean, what's your take on that?
Yeah, but he did. He took it and ran with it because, in my estimation, you know, that appeals to some of his base, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this is where education comes in, because I think we're miseducated.
Yes.
We're not educated on what the American flag represents.
Yeah.
What it's supposed to be: freedom and justice for all, right? That's for all of us who fly under the flag in America should have justice and be free, okay, to be all that you can be in a free democratic society, right? That's what the flag stands for. And those 50 stars aren't by accident. That's supposed to happen in all 50 states. So yeah, I do. I think he took it, and because there was sentiment out there due to a lot of miseducation about what the flag is about and it stands for, he took that and ran with it, you know, and it appeased some of his base. Okay. Yeah. And so, yeah, I do. I think, you know, here's the thing of the president, you know, and that's for any president that's been previous and future presidents. Part of your job is to unite the country.
Right.
Is to unite us. We are the United States of America. Your job, part of it, is to unite us.
That's right.
And so, you know, he unfortunately took this issue and used it as another divider. You know, and I hate the fact that he was like, you know, with football players that don't stand, what did he call them? Sons of bitches, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, and the NFL is what? 70% American,
African American,
right? So what does that say to us? So we already like talk to the hand. We don't want to hear what you got to say.
Right.
What did you call the mothers that birthed us?
Right.
That don't stand for the flag, right? So yeah, he bears a huge responsibility in that. Huge.
That's right.
We probably need to talk about that down the road, about the American flag and the implications of that, and the history of it and so forth, because there's an amazing history that goes with it that most people don't even fathom when they talk about our pledge allegiance to the flag, and when that certain parts of the anthem, where they come from, when it was put into that. There's things we need to understand. This, again, we do many things because others have done it. Mm-hmm. Because we've been doing it long don't mean we've been doing it right.
That's right.
And we have to understand that we need to go back to the inception. Where did it come from, and why do we do those things? You know, I like what Frederick Douglass said about the 4th of July and emancipation. He said, you know, the 4th of July. He said, what is the 4th of July to the Black man?
Yep.
He said, you want us to celebrate it, but we're in chains and in shackles. How can that be? So when we understand who we are, where we come from, and what we are told to do, much of that is erroneous. Mm-hmm. We need to clean up certain things. If we're going to be helped and we're going to help other people, we need to make sure that we clean up certain areas. And education is one of the areas that we have been pushed in. But that miseducation, Ricky, that you mentioned. A lot of history we've been taught, it hasn't been true history. And I
Right.
talked to a bunch of college kids. I said, you know, you got your A and you passed and got your diploma in high school, in your college class from a lie. You
Yeah.
had to perpetuate that lie in order to get your degree.
Right.
Now, when you look back, you know it was a lie, but you know what? You passed. So
Yeah.
again, it falls on us to look at this and say, now, guys, what are we going to do about this? Yes, it's not going to be easy. But if it was easy, what that saying goes, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it, wouldn't they?
That's right. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that we have to do to change and make a change.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I believe we have to speak out, and I think that's what we're doing now. And also, this last 5 minutes we're going to be talking about is like the shirt I'm wearing. My son, DeAndre Byfield, this is his product. This is him. He's a Black entrepreneur trying to make it. He's come up with this clothing line. It's great. And I want to support him in that. And so that's why I wore the shirt to do that. And Tim, we want to support you too. You got 91 books. Like I said, the book that we wrote, I think that we as Black Americans have to support each other in a sense when they come out with a book, we need to buy the book. We need to read the book, like the book that you wrote, 7 Signs of Success. And I used that in the prisons, and it was very, very effective. And then you have a new book coming out.
Yes,
Tell me about the new book.
Well, the newest one, and Larry had asked me on the last books I wrote. One of the last books I wrote was Nothing But the Dog in Me. But the one that we're releasing next month, should be next month, is Lynching, Rope No Longer Required, and is dealing with the just what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
There's no longer a need for us to be lynched when you can be beat down, strangled, and murdered in plain sight, in plain daylight. So what we have to do, again, the books are all about changing the mindset. We cannot re-educate if we don't first get the person's attention. We need to get people's attention. And I believe that this is a format to get people's attention so we can at least have a dialogue, not a monologue, because it's easy to do a one-way conversation. We need to have open dialogue with people to bring them in. And Ricky said it earlier in the conversation, in his conversation, this is not about us trying to get them to follow us. Follow the truth.
Yeah.
Get involved in the truth, the justice aspect of it. We do that. This shows, I believe, is a hit already because we're sitting here and we're communicating with one another.
Yeah.
This is what we need to do.
Yeah, and, you know, and every week we're gonna sponsor somebody who is a Christian that has got their product out there. If it's a restaurant they're opening up or clothing line they're doing, we're going to support our young people and our young entrepreneurs, and that's of any race. We're going to do that for. Richard, what's your last closing comments? We have about 6 minutes left.
Yeah. We really appreciate those who have tuned in for the first time, and hope you continue to stay tuned in. We really love you. Want to hear your feedback, any topics that you want to discuss, and you know, in order to make change, lasting change, we're going to have to be courageous, and a courage starts with discussing the tough things that we have so often pushed down, pushed below. Maybe because we don't feel we're versed on it, maybe because it makes us feel uncomfortable. But we want to be a voice for you. Okay. And we want to give you a voice so you can enter into having courageous discussions around your dinner table with your neighbors. Right now, I believe, Mike and Tim, people want to talk more than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Before I jumped on here, I was in an 1.5-hour discussion with a couple, a beautiful couple. They've adopted 2 African-American children. And all of our discussion was around what's going on and how they should have a courageous discussion with their African-American adopted kids. So, you know, we want to help. We want to help equip you with that. Like Mike said, you know, we want to, in order to help with some of the systemic issues, particularly the financial inequities that exist between African Americans, people of color, and whites is to be able to promote good quality products that are out there among businesses that just necessarily don't have the budget,
Right.
you know, to really promote. And I want to add this too. You don't necessarily have to be a Christian to bring your product.
Yeah.
You know, we want everybody to listen. This is not, I want to reiterate this. This is not a religious show. Are we all believers? We are. Jesus Christ, wholeheartedly. And we will never denounce who we are and how God has created us. But we want to hear from everybody.
That's right.
Everybody welcomed in this platform and in this space.
Very good. Thank you.
And you said it earlier too. We're not here to debate you. We're not going to debate with you, but we'll share with you. And we will disseminate information. That's what this is all about. If you have a product, hey, bring it. We'll talk about the product. As long as it's not something illegal, you know, bring it to us. We'll emphasize that, because we need to say that, because some people are bring some stuff and say, hey, you know, I got this joint venture that I'm doing.
Right.
And, you know, we can't have that. So
That's right. That's
Right.
right.
But once again, though, you're right, though. We want to come into your living rooms, have these discussions. Join us on Facebook. I believe we're going to be on YouTube, and we're on a podcast, and I believe on Apple TV. So
Wherever you get your podcast.
yeah,
Roku as well. I think that's what
yeah,
you said.
Roku, right. So please join us and listen to what we have to say, and we'll be talking about many topics, as Richard indicated. We'll even be talking about marriage, and we'll have guests on as well. Hopefully we can get some of the council people that we've already reached out to. Hopefully we can get some of the pastors in the greater Cleveland area that can join us, just to have a courageous discussion how we can be change makers. And that's what we are. We're change makers. We're trying to be able to talk about these challenging conversations and be able to make progress. Tim, you have your last thoughts?
No, I was just listening to what you were saying, and that's what it comes down to. What we're doing is we just want to bring people in to make them a part of what we're doing. If they have questions, that by all means, you know, some people are afraid to talk, but if you can send us a question, you know, get it to us, and we will take that as a topic of conversation, and we will explore that information with you and online.
That's right. So just make comments on Facebook, make comments on YouTube if you can. Whatever you suggest that you want to hear, that you'd like to hear a topic that we can talk about, we can accommodate you guys. You know, really, we're here to serve you guys. That's the viewers. We want to serve you all, and hopefully we can do a good job on doing that, because that's really the healing process, as Tim and Richard indicated. That's what we're trying to do. So it's 3 minutes left to go. And just like
Rick, got something to say there. Say it, share it, man. You got some time there. Go for it.
You know what? All I can say is we appreciate you, and courageous discussions, signing out.
Yeah. Well, appreciate it. Tim, Richard, thank you for your input. Thank you for our discussions. I think it's something we need to do. I think we're going to have a lot of fun doing this show and talking about it.
You need to thank that guy there too.
Huh?
You thank that guy there. Larry
Yeah.
James.
Larry James, thank you. Yeah, Larry James, absolutely, for making this happen for us.
Absolutely.
So we appreciate it. And if no one has anything else to say, we'll go ahead and conclude the show. We'll see you in 2 weeks. The show will be every other week. So we'll be on every other Tuesday.
You said 2 and 2?
1, 2. Yep.
That's good.
2 weeks.